lesson number 36 and sixth lesson on the addition script. We are learning JavaScript and we are learning JavaScript by examples. In this series, we are trying to recreate this application, and it is an addition script for children, which is available on this website here. And you have two numbers, a plus symbol and an input field. You type in an answer and you get a response as a tick or a cross. This is what we have created so far, which is just one question. And in today's lesson, we'll learn how to create multiple copies as are visible on this page with the help of the script that we have already created. We will use for loop. So I will change the size of the browser, and this is the document that we created last time. This is the exact copy of this for today's lesson. I will right mouse click and I will open it up with my text editor. So this is the script from the last time, and I just want to point out that I did not follow the best practices in last lesson, in that I have used a variable without implicitly defining it. I should have said let, although if I don't use it, refresh it, the script is working perfectly fine no matter how many times I use it. Okay, but at the end of the lesson I will show you the implications of not following the best practices. Okay, so our goal is to create multiple copies with the help of this script. So we have a few elements, HTML elements. The first element, which is the container, which holds all these numbers and the input field, has been created with the help of HTML. And in these lines of code, we are creating two more divs. Each holds a number, and this second div also holds this plus symbol, and then there is an input field, which is this one. To make multiple copies, I just want to create another element, and I will call it questions. And I will say document dot create element, and the element is div again. Now, instead of appending these elements to this container, I want to append these elements to this new div as a parent element. So I will say questions append to brackets, and I will remove these three elements from here and I will just paste it here. So if I save it now, nothing should be visible. Refresh it, because this newly created div is not attached to anything. So I will copy it and I will paste it here. So if I save it now, we should be able to see the same result. The next thing that I want to do is in the CSS area. So instead of targeting every div element, I just want to target this one element with the help of ID. So I will copy this, and I will, instead of saying div, I will type in the name of the ID of the element. And then when you're targeting an element with the help of ID, you always have to use this hash symbol. So if I save it now, refresh it, we have almost the same results. To make it more clear, I will say border 1 pixel solid black. Save it, refresh it. This box is the container now. I should really increase the height of the container. If I save it now, refresh it, now this is a better representation of what is happening. So we have a div as the main container of the questions, and then we have this child div which is attached to this, and this child has another three elements that are attached to this with the help of this line of code. And then we are attaching this div to this main container here. So far so good, no issues. Now we can simply make multiple copies of it with the help of for loop. So we have used for loop in past. I will say for var I is equal to 0, I less than 5. We're trying to make 5 copies of it, and I will say I plus plus. Okay, so this loop will run 5 times with an initial value of I, with an initial value of 0, and it will, every time it runs, it will increase the value by 1. So first time the loop runs, the value of I is 0, it is less than this, so the loop will run, and the second time the loop runs, the value will become 1, and it will keep running until the value of I is less than 5, and 2 curly braces, and I will remove the closing curly bracket, and I will remove this from here, and I will enclose everything within the body of this loop. So if I save it now, we should have 5 copies. Notice that the border is only visible once. So I want to create a class, and the way you create a class is you type in a dot and type in the name of the class that you want to use. I will say questions class, 2 curly braces, and I will copy everything from here in this class as well. However, this class is still not being used, so it should not make any difference at all. So if I save it, refresh it, there is no difference. The box is still visible once only. Now I want to apply this class, so I will copy this to this div container that we created just here, and I will say questions class list dot add, and I will paste the name of the class. So if I paste it here, semicolon, save it, refresh it, now we have 5 boxes. If I just maximize it, refresh it, that is how it looks like now. So we want to make these things horizontal. So if I change the size of the browser one more time, and I can now remove these properties, and it should still remain same because we are using this class attached to this container. So if I save it, refresh it, there's no difference, almost no difference. So I can say display flex, and if I save it, maximize it, refresh it, we have 5 copies of it. The only issue is that this plus symbol is appearing only once. In fact, it is appearing 5 times, but it is superimposed on each other, and the reason is that this pseudo class has this position as absolute. It should be relative. If I save it, maximize it, refresh it, we now see a plus symbol appearing 5 times, but it is not in the right place. So I will change the size of the browser once again, and I can either say minus 60 pixels, save it, refresh it. So the plus symbol appears correctly now. However, all the divs are bumping into each other. So we can fix that. And we can also, instead of saying left minus 60, I can also say right and 60 pixels. It should make no difference. Refresh it. It is looking exactly the same as it was before. So we can also say margin 60 pixels, for example, and if I save it, maximize the window, refresh it, we have 5 copies that are 60 pixels apart. We are getting close to what is visible here. If I go back, change the size of the browser, and I can now make, instead of 5 copies, I can make 50 copies. I can make the script run 50 times, save it, maximize it, refresh it, you'll notice that the questions are appearing 50 times in a single horizontal row, which is not what we want. So I will resize the browser, and I will go back to my CSS properties, and I will say flex wrap and wrap. Save it, maximize the window, refresh it. Now we have 50 copies appearing on the page, but they are not in the center. I will also say margin auto and width 80%. Save it, maximize the window, refresh it. The questions appear to be in the middle. We do not need this outline anymore. I can go back to my script and I can remove this piece of code, and if I save it, maximize it, refresh it, this is much closer to what is visible here, although the font size are smaller because this is in the model and we still have not created any model as yet. I indicated earlier that this is not the best practice, and we'll see what happens now. So if I maximize it, I will type in the first answer. Notice although 2 plus 2 is 4, it says wrong. If I type in 7, it says wrong. If I type in 4, it says wrong. So that is because we did not implicitly declare this variable. So I will say let, and that should fix this issue. So if I save it and maximize it, refresh it, 3 plus 1 is 4. Now we have the correct response. 4 plus 3 is 7, 3 plus 1 is 4, and 5 plus 1 is 6. If you type in the wrong answer, it will show its response as a cross. So that is all for today. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next lesson.